and if I'll introduce you and then you can drop off then. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Esher Sixth Form College Apprenticeship and Employment Information Evening. We've got lots of people here to talk to you today, and I'm going to start by introducing myself. I'm Nicola Wilberforce. I'm Director of Progression Guidance. And what we're going to have today are talks from Sue Taylor from Alps. She's going to explain to us about apprenticeships. We've got and the way in which it all works. We've got Tanya and Luna, who are both former students of Esher College, who are going to share their apprenticeship journeys with you. And then we're going to hear from Akeem and Joseph, who are from an organisation called MultiVerse, which was previously called White Hat, about the way in which some external support is available to students who wish to do apprenticeships. And I'm then going to finish off with a little bit about the support that we can provide students from Esher College. I'm actually going to quickly now share a couple of slides with you to show you some of the things that students could be doing after Esher. So of course you could be going to university, and if you're in the first year, you might be at the stage where you're thinking about what the various options could be for you. And obviously going to university is obviously one of them, but you're obviously thinking perhaps of doing an apprenticeship as well. We could also be thinking about continuing our further education in a different area, so going to an FE college or perhaps doing our foundation course. You might be wanting to go straight into a job without training, so not an apprenticeship formally. You might be thinking of starting your own business. You might be not sure what you want to do and having a gap year and so on. If you're a second year, you might actually be at the stage of thinking, I actually need to do something about that apprenticeship that I've been telling my mum and my tutor and my mates that I'm going to apply for. So this evening is to a certain extent very much geared at both first years and second years. And some of you might have been at this event this time last year, which was the first big event we did during lockdown. And so in effect, you might hear some of the same things again, but you might be listening to it from a slightly different perspective. Now, in terms of where Sixth Form College students from Esher went last year, we still predominantly send the majority off to do to university, either directly or after a gap year, but having got their place. A significant number apply having got their grades, but we have got a growing, small but growing number of students who are going off and doing apprenticeships. And I think that is going to increase. And you know, there's lots of uncertainty in the job market. There are lots of pros and cons of going down different routes, and we want you to make sure that you are fully prepared effectively and fully informed so you can make the best decisions. So I think it's probably best at this point that I hand over to Sue, and she can explain to you really what constitutes an apprenticeship, how it all works, and then we can hear from our apprentices later. So if I can hand over to you now, Sue.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm just sharing my screen, hopefully.
Welcome to an introduction to apprenticeships for students. Hopefully, once I've been through all of these slides with you, it will give you a really good idea of what you need to do when applying for an apprenticeship.
Oh, we're getting there. Good evening, everybody. I'm just waiting for this to load, which it is doing.
Welcome to an introduction to
around. It will be there.
Hopefully, once I've been through all of these slides with you, it will give you a really good idea of what you need to do when applying for an apprenticeship.
Okay, can I just get a nod that
welcome to an introduction to apprenticeships for students.
Can I give you my
hopefully once I've been through all of these slides with you, it will give you a really good idea of what you need to do
I'm gonna let this
applying
happen.
for an apprenticeship.
Okay.
Firstly, what is an apprenticeship? Well, it's important to understand it's a real job where you earn a salary, you work for at least 30 hours a week, and you study towards job-related qualifications. Now, those qualifications have been made by industry for industry. So those qualifications are going to be really important to you if you ever want to progress from that company, move on from that company, because other employers will recognise them. You'll have a contract of employment, which will include holiday pay, sick pay, and you'll have the skills that you need to move on in the future. So the different range of apprenticeships. There are many different apprenticeship opportunities that you can do. There are over 350 different apprenticeship standards, but actually what's important is understanding that the apprenticeship standards in your area, the area where you can apply. Obviously you need the job to apply for apprenticeships, you need to be applying for a job that will do apprenticeships. But this gives you some great ideas, such things as architecture, creative and digital, and nursing. And here's some of the logos of the large employers that we work with. You'll recognise many of these, and I've done work with many of them too, and they all offer really good apprenticeship programmes. You will find, because of something called the apprenticeship levy, which means all employers with a large payroll have to pay into like an apprenticeship pot, that many of the large companies now will offer really good apprenticeship opportunities. Even through COVID times, we have still seen some really good apprenticeship opportunities. So these are the different levels that you can do, and you'll see a level 2 apprenticeship there. That's meant to be the equivalent of 5 GCSEs. A level 3 is like 2 good A levels. Level 4 to 7, I like to call these like the industry qualifications. The level 4 to 7 higher apprenticeships, really good opportunities. A level 7 is the equivalent to a master's degree, and then you have the degree apprenticeships, which will be linked to a university. Don't get too hung up about doing degree apprenticeships against higher apprenticeships, because quite often they offer you exactly the same progression salaries as you move forward. And sometimes don't get too hung up on levels either, because actually, as long as you're getting the right job with the right experience and you know the company are going to be able to progress you, the levels shouldn't be too important. How does an apprenticeship work? Okay, most of your time will be spent on the job, actually working in an organisation, which is great because you tend to learn, work next to another person doing an apprenticeship, perhaps have a mentor working with you, giving you the skills, but actually learning and doing at the same time. The other 20% of your time is actually spent off the job, and this has changed immensely over COVID times, because we've had people doing far more online learning instead of the classroom learning. But it might go back and you might find yourselves doing classroom learning or attending a college provider, university. It could mean in that 20% that you do 4 days working, 1 day off to do your off the job, but it could mean that you do 4 weeks working, and perhaps on the 5th week you go off and do your off the job. So there are many differing models, and it's probably something that, if it is important to you how you do your off the job learning, then you should all be asking this when you are interviewed. So I had a little look about vacancies in the area, and I know for Surrey, I mean, I've been doing this job a long time, that these vacancies are quite low at the moment, but they are rising, gradually rising, and certainly with the higher and degree apprenticeships, we're still seeing lots of vacancies coming through now, even for September starts. And I can demonstrate this by the slides that I put together this week. You'll see the chartered manager degree with Amazon, design and construction, management apprentice, rail engineer. These are all degree or higher apprenticeships, so really good opportunities. I have put a couple of level 3 vacancies on there. You'll see the salaries are quite low, but seriously, I think what's important, if you want to be a dental nurse, then training on a low salary is probably what you're going to have to do, because most dental nurses opportunities pay quite low. But you're going to have to just find out about salaries when you go for an interview. If you want to do higher or degree apprenticeships, generally the salaries are high. That Amazon one is particularly high. I'd say I usually see higher and degree apprenticeships from about 17,000 upwards. But it's great. It was only a few years ago that we would never see salaries like this. So really good opportunities. So how do you find an apprenticeship? Okay, well, one of the best ways, it's not the only way, but is to go onto what's called the gov.uk website, find an apprenticeship. And if you Google it, just find an apprenticeship, you'll find it will come up, or you can even Google amazing apprenticeships and you'll find the link to the gov.uk website. It's easy to register, you can do research, you can have a look at vacancies, and I love that bit of looking at vacancies, because you can actually go sort of deep into the vacancy and see what they're offering. You can contact companies, you can manage alerts for areas that you're interested in. A little tip for you, I always say this, we only know what we know. So actually keeping your options open and not putting too many refining areas into the search station will give you more opportunities. And also on that website, if you are looking to do apprenticeships instead of perhaps doing a degree, remember you'll probably be prepared to travel. So when you're doing your searches, remember to keep perhaps search UK based, because you'll get more opportunities coming up. Where else would you look? Okay, well, if you really know what you want to do, it's kind of quite easy sometimes. You can go on a company website, you can search and look for finance companies, perhaps companies that will give you accountancy opportunities. You can look at legal, you might want to go and work in engineering and look up someone like Dyson and look up their apprenticeship opportunities. So that's kind of quite a good way of looking, because not all vacancies make it to the gov.uk website, and I wouldn't like you to miss out on any opportunities. So you are going to have to put some work in to look for this. Social media is sometimes quite good for local vacancies. Certainly the local councils quite often put opportunities on there, and talk to family and friends. Sometimes it's amazing the knowledge that's out there with family and friends who can give you ideas and opportunities perhaps that are happening within the companies that they work in. Now, I mentioned briefly Amazing Apprenticeships. I love this website. It's been created by somebody who does a similar job to me, and actually she has really made a good point of talking to all of these companies, putting all this information together. And as I mentioned, you can get to the gov.uk website by using this too. And Vacancy Snapshot is just great. This is where you can look at companies which have been interviewed and find out how they do all their apprenticeship recruitment, and you can also sometimes look at videos and things on Vacancy Snapshot. So it's great at whatever year you are to be looking on there, because it should help you develop the sorts of things you want to do. Okay, this is the main gov.uk website details. I can always be contacted as well, so that's useful. And this is the Amazing Apprenticeship website that I mentioned.
I think the sound went there. That was a presentation I actually did this afternoon for another school, but it was exactly the same slides I was going to share with you today, and I just clicked on the wrong one. But I would have said exactly the same, so I hope that was useful. And that's never happened to me before, so that completely threw me when that presentation came up. I would say to all of you, though, the Vacancy Snapshot on Amazing Apprenticeships is a really great place to go and research and look at opportunities, and so is, I think, the Find an Apprenticeship website. You go onto the Find an Apprenticeship website, and actually when you go on there, even if you're not looking at the moment, it's so useful to find out what people are doing, how they're recruiting, what they're looking for, and I think you'd find that very rich when you're looking at opportunities to go into there. I'll pick up on myself. I said there were 350 standards. I think there's actually now 700 and something things change quickly. I don't know where my 350 came from. I was having an odd moment, I think, but lots and lots of opportunities there for people. And I am still seeing those vacancies that are on there were this week's vacancies. So, and I could have put very, very many more on there for the degree and higher apprenticeships for September starts. So there's lots still out there for people to apply for. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sue. We're going to be taking questions, and if you have any questions during the evening, do please put them into the chat on the YouTube channel, and they will be conveyed to us in our Teams meeting, and we will be able to answer them. I think, you know, there are a couple of things just to reiterate again. It's the fact that apprenticeships are jobs and you have to get your apprenticeship with an employer. It's also various ways in which the training is delivered. I think it's important to realise you don't have to do an apprenticeship and stay living at home. If you're on a salary of £20,000, you're going to be a darn sight better off than most students. You could go any part of the country to do an apprenticeship. So if you're thinking that, oh, you know, if I do an apprenticeship, I can't go and live in a different city. I can't go up to Leeds where all my mates are going to university. Well, if you can find an apprenticeship in Leeds, you're going to be living in much nicer accommodation than they probably will be, because you're on a considerably better salary than the money that most students will have available to them. So don't kind of feel that if you do an apprenticeship, you have to stay at home, although obviously lots of them are in London and you're all in a good place to live from that respect. And I think that you also do need to kind of think about the levels, as Sue said, quite flexibly. Sometimes parents are quite keen that their student definitely gets a level 4 apprenticeship because they've already got BTECs or A levels at level 3 and they want to see progression. One of the things I always say, if I wanted to change a career and I was going to go and do something like floristry, you know, I've currently got a level 7 qualification, but I ain't going to be doing a level 7 in floristry. I'm going to be doing, you know, level 2 to start with, you know, if not level 1. So it's all about the right level for you to start with. But if you go to the right place, you know, you will continue to progress, and there's no problem about students going either in effect to a sort of higher level apprenticeship, which is level 3, or even going backwards to a level 2 one to a certain extent before you go forward. Yes, so there's a good question. Sue, do you want to take that question? Can you see that in the chat? It's for higher, why is it 4 to 7 instead of 4 to 5, as the degree apprenticeship is 6 to 7? And I think that's a good question. It is a little bit of terminology.
I think it's to do with the industry qualifications that they're doing, and that's just the levels that there are. So the degree apprenticeship will be at level 6 and 7. It's with a university, but if you're going to get I'm trying to get this right, but the 4 to 7 is advanced, is a level 3. Level 4 to 7 will be more like what the industry are asking for, but you're going to find so many more opportunities on the 4 to 7 in the higher apprenticeships than you are in the 6 to 7. I think 6 to 7 is just something. The 6 to 7 degree apprenticeship is because people want to see degree apprenticeships out there, and I think people get too hung up on it, to be honest.
Okay, we might come back to the next question a bit later, which is about the kind of additional time commitment, because I think it, in addition to the study time, because I think it's probably a good idea if we now go to Tanya, who's one of our former students who's completing her apprenticeship at BP, and she can actually talk about what being an apprentice is like. You're going to hear from Luna and Joseph as well, but some of the questions that some of you might have at the moment might well come out of be answered in their presentation. So if I can hand over to you, Tanya, now.
Yep, of course. Hoping you can hear me okay. I'll just share my slides. Hoping you can see them as well. So hi everyone, I'm Tanya. I'm a HR degree apprentice at BP. So you might know BP from the fuel petrol stations, but we're actually a multinational energy company. So we also have renewables, we have oil, we have gas, we have loads of different things. We have trading floors, So it's more than just the petrol stations, I assure you. And yes, I went to Esher, so I did maths, art and business at Esher, which people always thought was a bit of an odd mix, but it worked for me. I like the number side of things, also the artsy creative side, and then business was my main interest. So it fit well going into an apprenticeship. So I'll tell you a bit more about my apprenticeship. So this is kind of it in a nutshell. It's a 4-year scheme where you do 5 different rotations in HR. And HR, there's so much to do in HR. People tend to think of it as just, you know, dealing with firing people or hiring people. But if you're more into math side, you can go into like reward and payroll, which is to deal with people's salaries, and there's a lot of maths going on there. Or if you're more creative, you can go into like designing workplaces, and there's a lot more involved in HR than what you might think. And the degree is 3 years, so the same as a normal degree length. And it's a business studies degree, which is actually really nice because you get the general business studies knowledge and then you work in HR as well. And it's at University of West London, which is in Ealing, nice and close, nice area. And there's actually a picture of it in the background. And we go to university 1 day a week and we work the other 4 days, which I really love. So I love just having that break and using a different part of your brain. And I go to university on a Wednesday, and actually often when I come in on a Thursday, I'm like, how was everyone's weekend? Because I've had such a break that I think it's been a weekend. And everyone's like, no, it's just a Thursday. But it's nice to mix up your week that way, because I can't imagine working a 5-day week, to be honest. I think that would be quite long. So it's nice to have a mix in your week. And on top of that, as if it wasn't good enough already, we become chartered managers. So that's just an extra boost on your CV. So at the end of the 4 years, I'll have all this experience in industry and companies. I'll have a degree and I'll be a chartered manager. So it'll really set you up for success. And also I should mention the offices are in Sunbury. So that's nice and close. It's just by Twickenham, around by Esher. So good to get to. So I've talked a bit about my scheme, which is a HR scheme, but we also have loads of other schemes at BP. The ones in green we're recruiting for this September. So it's a software development apprenticeship or a supply and trading program. And the ones in grey we've recruited for in the past, and we probably will in the future, but we're not right now just because of the market and the economy and stuff. But if you're interested in any of those other ones, just go to bp.com/careers. So there's a lot there if you want to do data science or information technology, commercial procurement. There's a lot of different things there. So then this is a bit about my day-to-day, because I know before I went and worked, I was always like, but what do you actually do? What do you sit down or what do you do? So this is a bit of my calendar, a little sneak peek. So I'll have quite a few meetings. As you can see, Thursday was a bit busy. And then in between the meetings, I'll be just checking my email, seeing, you know, who has questions for me, and I'll be doing the job. So right now I'm working in recruitment, actually. So as you can see, Thursday, I had a few interviews. I was interviewing people. And then when I'm not in the interviews, I'll be looking through CVs, looking at candidate pools, seeing what kind of skills we have in certain areas. So just doing the job, sitting at my computer, working away. And then in my week, I've also got random catch-ups with my managers. So the support is always great at BP. Your managers will always have weekly catch-ups with you, check if everything's okay, if you need any help. And then I've also got some fun things in there. So Thursday evening, we had surprise leaving drinks for an apprentice. And Friday afternoon, we had a Friday fun with our team where we all play games together. So there's also something to break up the week. And I also get involved in random extra projects, which I think is one of the great things about being an apprentice. You get to do so much more than just your day job, and you get to kind of shape your week on what your interests are. So I'm actually creating an event with Microsoft apprentices. So we're doing a partnership, and that's completely outside of my day job. It's just something I was passionate about. We reached out on LinkedIn. And I'm getting execs at BP, so global head of workforce involved, and it's great the opportunities you have to do when you're an apprentice. And as you can see, Wednesday I was at university, so my lectures were economics and ethics, and there'll be bigger chunks were when we were in person, so we had breaks and stuff, but now we're online, they've split them into smaller chunks, so it's more manageable. And then with the comment about how much do we do outside of it, my university will tell you to do a lot of hours, but you don't actually have to do that many hours. So typically it's just around assessments we would do outside of our day-to-day, like our working day. So there's usually essays and reports, but we've had tests every now and then, and I'll get onto that a bit later, but that's mainly what I'll do, and that might be like a few hours in the evening, maybe a weekend, but work actually have a commitment to let us do uni work during our work week. It's a certain amount of hours, I think maybe 2 hours a week or something, we can do university work, and because the company has invested in you doing that degree, they really support you with it. So if you need time off to do a test or anything, they'll give you some time off. And I think really they want you to succeed, so whatever support you need, they'll give it to you. And then, as I said, a bit about the assessments. So for every module, we have 2 assessments. There'll be some in the middle and some at the end. And then we have Easter break, summer break, and Christmas break, like other students. And during these breaks, when we're not at university, we get Wednesdays off to work on our development. So we can do training, we can shadow people in different areas of the business, which I think is really great to have that time. And then we also have work performance reviews with our manager. So this will be continuous throughout the year. And you'll set some goals, and then you'll get feedback, and you'll, maybe create new goals, and then complete the goals. And that's kind of, so you'll have work performance reviews and university assessments. And at the end of university, we have to do an assessment to become, like, for the apprenticeship, for the chartered manager side of it. And we do a project and we do some interviews. But you'll have 9 months to do that after you complete your degree, and all those Wednesdays off in those 9 months. So you get a lot of time for it. And again, as I keep saying, a lot of support. So it's very manageable. And to be honest, I think it's less work than I did at college. I'm not sure if I'm right to say that. But it is a bit less work than I did at college. So that's good. And then when you complete your degree, if you choose to just do a typical 9-to-5 job, you've got all your evenings and weekends free. So a kind of summary of what I've been saying, some pros and cons of apprenticeships in case you're on the fence. And of course, there's more pros than cons because I'm a bit biased. But pros are no student debt. You earn a salary, and it's a pretty good salary. Can't complain there. You get all the work experience, which makes a great CV. As I said before, it's a nice varied week. And I'd really emphasize this is you can still have a university lifestyle. So we go to the university campus every Wednesday. You can join all the uni societies, you can go to all the uni events, and you can live close by the uni. So a few other people in our class, they're fully gone into the whole uni lifestyle. So you can still experience that side of things. But you also have the work social life. So we have loads of grad events. We have loads going on. Well, back before COVID we did. Now it's a bit more online quizzes, which we all enjoy. But we'd have loads of like pubs and trampolining and climbing walls, and they were always doing something random at work. You'll be ahead of your peers in terms of your CV and your experience. So you'll come out not only with a degree, but also the experience. And you'll get to work at a large company, which is amazing. BP is such a global company that I could work in different countries, and there's so many opportunities for me. And then a few cons, but don't listen to them too closely, is more work than purely doing uni, but like I said earlier, less work than college. I put a kind of being ahead of your peers as in you're experiencing something different to them, and every now and then they'll all be chatting about uni and I'll be like, oh, I can't relate. But it's not much of a con. And you'll have less holiday than if you're in uni, but I still have 30, and actually that's gone up to 35 to 40 days holiday a year, so 6 to 7 weeks. So it's not too bad. Again, I can't complain. But that's all from me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
That's brilliant, Tanya. If we perhaps take, I mean, I think you've sort of answered. There was a question about a specific computer science degree, which was asked about the commitment of self-study, and I think, as you sort of said, there is some additional study, but it's not unmanageable. I think the next thing to emphasise is, of course, you are doing a degree level apprenticeship, so you are having that sort of university experience, but we'll find out from MultiVerse how even students who are doing high level apprenticeships can experience that same sort of social environment. And I think the question that was posed about how do you progress up the levels because there aren't any exams is actually important to realise there are going to be assessments and exams, and it will very much depend on the industry in which you are doing your assessment as to the industry in which you are doing your apprenticeship as to how those assessments are carried out, and also at what level they're carried out. So there is assessment. It's certainly not that there are no assessments. And I think one of the things you must realise is that in many jobs, irrespective of whether you go in as a trainee or an apprentice or as a graduate, there are continuing assessments. So I'm afraid examinations don't finish. I mean, I know kind of currently 6.2s aren't doing exams. They're going to have teacher awarded grades. We don't know what's going to happen with 6.1s at the moment. But those assessments don't stop, but they are assessments that are appropriate to whatever your apprenticeship is in. I think that's what's important. The very specific question for you, I think, Tanya, is what's the difference between a chartered manager and a regular manager?
That's a very good question, and tell me if I get this wrong. But I know charters are kind of associations of people within a certain industry. So managers, that's an association. I know they have it for accountants, and it's kind of just a recognised kind of certificate. So if you have that on your CV, people just know you've had certain levels of experience and you've gone through certain assessments, so they know you'd be a good manager. So again, it's just something good on your CV.
Yeah, exactly. It's a professional qualification, isn't it? So anyone can say they're a manager. Many of you students might be managers in your part-time jobs, but you haven't kind of fulfilled the various criteria that a professional manager. And in a sense, the Chartered Institute of Management is a professional body, and professional bodies effectively like to set standards. So if you can meet those standards of a professional body, you can then become a chartered whatever it is. I'm actually a chartered science teacher. So the final couple of questions, I think, before we perhaps go on to Luna, actually perhaps the one that is specific is, do BP do work experience?
We do, yes. I'm struggling to remember how you get it though. I'm sure it will be on the site. Everything is on bp.com, but we do work experience, yeah, for varying lengths of time and varying times at your school education.
Yeah. I think probably what we might do is go to Luna now and come back to some of the questions in a bit. So Luna, can I hand over to you now and leave you to introduce yourself and so on, and say what your experience and of being an apprentice has been?
Of course. Thank you, Nicola. And thank you, Tanya, for that. Really insightful to learn about what other apprentices are doing. So I guess, firstly, I've got some slides to share. But firstly, thank you. It's great to be back at Esher College and obviously be speaking to everyone today. So my name's Luna. I was with Esher College, I believe it was 2014. So it feels like a very long time ago now. But let me tell you a bit about me and my journey as an apprentice. So my screen should be coming up. If you guys can give me a thumbs up once it does. Brilliant. Thank you, Nicola. So, of course, today's discussion is going to be a bit about myself and my apprenticeship journey. So let me just click. So I put together a quick agenda. So kind of three areas that I really wanted to cover during today's talk. So a bit about me. So my journey at Esher College, what I studied, and thereafter what I did to get to where I am today. My specific apprenticeship journey within the IT sales space, and a bit around the benefits I found of working within an apprenticeship. So as mentioned, I attended Esher College back in 2014. A bit similar to Tanya, I think the areas that I studied were, a bit of a, I guess not a strange mix, but a bit of a different mix. Obviously, you got the physical education side. So I like to play a lot of rugby when I was younger. Really enjoyed my sports and physical education, but had a creative side as well. So things like 3D design and art and design, it's an area that I was really passionate about, really exciting, and it was definitely areas I enjoyed within my my time at Esher. So during my time at Esher in 2015, I picked up a part-time job at Kew Gardens, which is a wonderful place to work at. My mother actually still works there. So I was there, pretty much. They had lovely Christmas at Kew. I'm sure a number of you have been there. So I was there as a temp, and they kept me going for a couple of weekends. And once I graduated Esher College, I ended up being there full-time. just whilst I really found where I wanted to go at the time, I was looking to apply for university for 3D design. I still wasn't really sure if that was the route that I wanted to go down. I know it's an area that I really enjoyed at Esher College, but was that an area that I could, I guess, develop a career and see myself in the long term? I wasn't quite sure. So I stuck out my time at Kew Gardens for a number of years. And then I came about an apprenticeship with an organisation called Exponential. We're an IT managed services company founded back in 2002, a British IT organisation. I was actually introduced into the company from my father, who was in a fairly similar role to I am now, so within the IT sector. And he said, Expo are doing a sales academy, which I'll come on to a bit later on today. Which is, of course, the apprenticeship journey that they took on. So, let me tell you a bit about the apprenticeship journey. So some really insightful points earlier today around the different levels of apprenticeships. It was an area that I wasn't really aware of before, around the different levels. However, mine was a level 3, so it was just a 12-month apprenticeship. So very much on the roll. I think there was a question surrounding what the process was around, obviously the selection process. Now, it was so for this particular apprenticeship. It was applications through Exponential directly. So, of course, I'm sure there were a number of outsourced organisations who were contacting candidates. But essentially, there were around between 500 to 600 candidates who went for this apprenticeship role. In the end, it was a full day in the office of interviews, activities and teamwork activities, and just understanding obviously yourself and your background and seeing if you're really fit for the apprenticeship. So in the end, there were 10 of us that joined Expo. Obviously, you can see in the top right there's a number of us highlighted there, myself on the left hand side. Throughout the 12 months, it was very much a learn on the role experience. I was talking to a number of customers and new organisations. I guess a bit of background about Expo. So say your home broadband services, we provide that at a higher scale into businesses, but have a branch into things like telephony, so Microsoft Teams, which is what we're using now, but also cybersecurity. So we look at obviously supporting organizations around their technology journey. So that's where I guess my learning experience came from, was talking to IT contacts within organizations, key stakeholders, and just understanding how business works. And throughout the year, I was putting together a portfolio. So within that, it just highlighted my day-to-day activities, what my conversations have been in both internally, externally, and towards the end of the apprenticeship, it was around scenarios. So a scenario exam, for example, they gave us a scenario of an organisation that was looking to do a particular project and how we tackle that, and how we'd engage, and of course at the end provide that service to the customer. And at the end, it was an interview with one of the key assessors at BCS. So the Chartered Institute for IT was the body that I did my apprenticeship with. And now, so when did I complete my apprenticeship? I think it was 2019, before obviously COVID-19 was a thing. But since then, I've come on to have a full-time job at Exponential as a business development consultant. So everything I was doing and learning throughout the process in the apprenticeship, I'm now doing as a full-time role. A bit about, I guess, what I learned within my apprenticeship journey at Expo is really networking. So I feel I was working, I'll touch on this a bit later on. I do have one more slide that covers the benefits, but really speaking with key stakeholders within the business, Exponential, who really grew the company from the ground up, and just understanding their train of thoughts and, how they become successful. But also, successes from the Sales Academy Exponential. So every year, Expo run this apprenticeship, so the Sales Academy, as we call it internally. So we've got a number of graduates from this apprenticeship still working at Expo. So having experience with those guys, speaking to them around their expertise, and understanding what their challenges were. Of course, coming around to the experience and learning work, those are definitely key areas that I learned. So over to my last slide, which is around the benefits. That I think Tanya covered quite a lot of the benefits, and unfortunately, I couldn't see many cons from my apprenticeship. But to share the 4 key areas I thought really is that real life experience. You're on the job, you're learning as you go. really you get to shadow successful employees. So you're able to, I think, Nicola, you mentioned during the beginning of this call that, you know, you're going to be working quite closely with you know, mentors within the organisation. So that's certainly really helped throughout my apprenticeship journey. At the end of it, you do get a qualification as well. And I think really beneficial part of apprenticeship, especially in my role in IT and sales, is, you know, you can build credibility on your CV through your experiences. Obviously, you've been doing the role throughout your apprenticeship journey. So that's an additional, I guess, tick point within your CV. And then finally, it's building the self-confidence side. I'm still fairly introverted as an individual, and I feel that, you know, this apprenticeship journey has really helped me, I guess, start to build a roadmap to being confident. But I feel that, the journey that I've been on at Exponential has really allowed me to become self-confident, and I'm sure the same with any other apprenticeships. So I think that's pretty much me. One point that I did want to raise, it's funny, my family's, I guess a number of us have gone through apprenticeships. My younger brother actually went to, well, he still is at Jaguar Land Rover as an engineer. So I believe their offices are near East College, actually, near in Surbiton. So I know it's very useful for a number of people. My younger brother didn't go to university either. So hopefully that's me, and you found my experiences insightful.
That's really interesting, and I think you and Tanya provide a really good kind of contrast, because you didn't go straight from Esher to your apprenticeship. You spent some time at Kew, and I think that's also something which you as students and as parents as well need to consider. Not everybody is necessarily going to go absolutely straight away either to university or into an apprenticeship, and sometimes spending a little bit of time thinking about what's the right thing is good and is fine. And also you did, in effect, level wise go kind of sideways, but you went into a completely different area, so therefore doing a level 3 apprenticeship, which, as you say, is usually around sort of a year or so for level 3, as opposed to the much longer program that Tanya's doing, is, you know, shows that there are these big range of different, you know, there's no such thing as one apprenticeship which is always in the same way. Depends on the industry, the employer, the level, the method of delivery, and so on. I think you talked about finding out about your apprenticeship from friends and family, which was of course something that Sue said earlier. I think one of the things that makes it really quite daunting for a lot of students, and a lot of students end up going, oh, I can't face doing an apprenticeship or applying for one, I'm just going to apply to uni, it's nice and straightforward, is perhaps the how you go about it phase. And this is why we're going to turn to Akeem and then Joseph from MultiVerse, because there are organisations out there who can in effect help you, first of all, get apprenticeship ready, and secondly, get the right apprenticeship from you. And MultiVerse is a good example of that. So I think perhaps I'd like to hand over to you, Akeem, for you to describe a little bit about what MultiVerse is, how it could help students like ours at Esher College, and then we'll hear from Joseph about his experience as a MultiVerse apprentice.
Great stuff. Can I share screen, please? Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Great stuff. So thanks everyone, and it's been great hearing both Fluna and Tanya's experience. So I'm from MultiVerse. My name's Akeem. So in my role at MultiVerse, I look after our relationships with schools and colleges to very much kind of make sure the apprenticeship message is out there. Now I'm going to hand over to Joseph just to introduce himself before he comes on later on.
Hi everyone, and thanks for everyone else that had been doing the apprenticeship for sharing their views on it. My name's Joseph Grove. I'm doing a level 3 digital marketing apprenticeship at Global Council, and and I found MultiVerse through Drive Forward, who are a foundation that helps young care leavers find employment.
Great stuff. So at MultiVerse, we have a real social mission around creating the future of diverse leaders. When I say social mission, our huge values is around social mobility. We don't believe a young person's background should limit their outcomes or wherever they should be going. Kind of believe that if you have hard work, grit and determination, you know, the sky should be the limit for you. And one thing we do, we're on a mission really to build an outstanding alternative to university. Not to kind of like recap a lot of the information that's already been said, but this is kind of our own take on what we believe an apprenticeship is. An apprenticeship is a fantastic way to get access to a great career, learn new skills, and apply them directly within the world of work. Sue's mentioned this as well. I think something that does characterize an apprenticeship is that 20% off the job training, the applied learning, the salary, and the nationally recognized qualification that you will get. We've had several different levels and sorts of qualifications you might get. You might get a level 3, a level 4, but something fundamentally that all apprentices within the country receive is something called an apprenticeship standard, and that's an award in itself, and it's nationally recognized. And that may be accompanied by a degree or a certificate that's accredited by a specific accrediting body. At MultiVerse, for the vast majority of our apprenticeships, they range from around 15 to 12 to 18 months. So usually at the advanced and higher level. And something we're known for is that we have dedicated coaches that guide our apprentices throughout the entire apprenticeship journey. So like I said, there are several different levels we work through. And the general misconception that I had, and I think many others have as well, is that apprenticeships are deemed to be a much more easier pathway than going off to university, and that's not true. How I see it is that you work full time and you also have to commit to studying as well, and that can be quite a challenge. At MultiVerse, like I said, we focus on advanced, higher and now degree apprenticeships. So we launched our first degree apprenticeship a couple of months ago, and that's in data science. So the application process. So if you're interested in how we work, it's quite unique in terms of other apprenticeship recruitment cycles. So we have a bespoke recruitment cycle, platform where we assess young people and our candidates on 5 core competencies. So written determination, interpersonal skills, conscientiousness, problem solving, and intent. So mostly the most important one would be intent. What we want to see from young people applying for our roles is commitment. Once you're kind of assessed, then you are then invited to our offices. But now we do this all virtually. So what that means is that you meet us online and we kind of talk to you a bit more about why you've made the decision to do an apprenticeship and kind of why you feel you'll be beneficial, why an apprenticeship will be beneficial to yourself. And from there, we then share your virtual profile with several different employers, and hopefully from there, you'll be able to start your dream apprenticeship. But to talk a bit more about why we're different and what support we offer young people. So like I said, we kind of share those profiles, and how we do that through an algorithm and a method called smart matching. So based on the data you as a young person give us, we then kind of suggest roles that we believe will be best suited for you. And it's all about finding the perfect role for you as a young person. Given that this will probably be your first professional role, we believe, we really have to equip you for success. So every candidate is allocated a talent manager that gives you one-to-one advice and interview support. So there's no need to worry. I'm going to be quite biased in saying this, but also training providers. So we actually provide you with the qualification. So we do have incredible content. And like I said, throughout the entire apprenticeship experience, you will have a dedicated coach. I mentioned this earlier as well before. We believe that we are creating this alternative to university. And Tanya kind of mentioned the social aspect that she gets at work. What we're trying to do as well is really create that social experience to rival universities. So anything from Freshers Week, equivalent Freshers Week parties, football teams, societies, we try and create for our apprentices through our MultiVerse community. One of the things we are looking to do is address current and future skills gaps that university haven't really done. So we're doing this through our digital marketing courses, data fellowship, the Advanced Data Fellowship, which is the degree data apprenticeship, software engineering, project management, and business association. And again, Tanya mentioned the accreditation from CIM. So our business associate apprenticeship is accredited by CIM. We've partnered with New Colleges of Humanities for our degree apprenticeship, General Assembly for our digital marketing, and APM, which is the associate project management for our project management apprenticeship standard. So I'm now gonna hand over to Joseph to kind of tell us about his journey here and how he became an apprentice.
Yep, thanks, Hakeem. So yeah, as I said, Drive Forward Foundation introduced me to MultiVerse, and Drive Forward Foundation helped me go through the application process by writing down all my skills and previous experiences. And they also told me to look at Google Garage, and that's where I found the fundamentals of digital marketing. I took that course, and that's what inspired me to start doing my digital marketing apprenticeship. And also, once I was looking for jobs and talking to my talent coach at MultiVerse, he made sure that I stayed motivated to continue learning new skills on Google Garage. First, I met my talent coach once I applied on the website on MultiVerse, and we had a short telephone interview. And this is when he tried to find out the way I work and my recent skills in my previous jobs. And once I filled out my application form, that's when he started to match me with some jobs. So he matches me with the jobs and then sends me what is on offer. And then that's when I have to write a short cover letter of why I'm interested in that job and why I think it would be suitable. And then he chooses the correct job that he thinks would fit for me. And then you get confirmed in interview. So once I was confirmed for interview, me and my talent coach had a one-on-one session where we prepared for the interview and he made sure I knew all the most common questions that were going to come up and that were relevant for that job. He made sure I knew what the job was and he made sure I knew what the reason I wanted to do that job was. So once I had the interview, I got feedback from my first interview, which I didn't get. It was offered to someone else because I think there is a lot of competition in the digital marketing apprenticeships. And then my second interview, we had another one-on-one, and he made sure I was ready for that interview, and I was successful with the next interview. So that's when I was paired with a digital marketing coach, and I started my apprenticeship quite quickly. It was about a 1-month process, but some apprenticeships do take a bit longer to start. And a couple of weeks later, we did a boot camp, which was with about 20 other digital marketers that are also doing apprenticeships, and my digital marketing coach that taught us about the fundamentals of digital marketing and new digital marketing skills. So that was a week-long course that would have been in person, but it was online at home, and I got to meet all the other digital marketing apprentices, and we did a project on that week that we had to present at the end of the week, which was great. We learned a lot, and every month we also have modules that we learn about different digital marketing techniques. And I've actually got another boot camp next week for the whole week learning coding. So that's going to be cool. That's not something that I do in my job, but we have to learn that. And we have to take an exam next month as well on coding, and the month after on the digital marketing fundamentals that we learned in the first boot camp and all the modules that we have been doing. And yeah, I think that MultiVerse is a great place to have your apprenticeship. As you said, the pay ranges from 17,000, I think, to 23,000. And I think it has changed my life for the better. And as Nicola said, that you won't really miss out on living independent if you are making a great wage, because I actually have saved up enough money to move out soon. I'm looking to move out very soon and live independently.
That's brilliant, Joseph. Thank you. Akeem, do you want a bit of time to wrap up a little bit more about MultiVerse, or can I say a little bit? Okay, you're muted at the moment.
Yeah, I've literally just got a slide left.
Go ahead.
So we have a range of different opportunities. Weirdly enough, we've actually placed some apprentices at BP as well. So we work with tech startups to scale ups. So Sue made a really great point about the apprenticeship levy. There are tons of huge corporations and huge kind of enterprise companies that are looking for apprenticeships, and there are just many opportunities there. So we look at companies like Facebook, Google, Omnicom, Just Eat, Warner Bros. There are tons of apprenticeship opportunities there as well. And yeah, that's me done. Okay, so
thanks ever so much for that. I'm going to just sort of kind of, I think, explain that MultiVerse is, a lot of the time students will go straight to direct to an employer. And what MultiVerse, and there are other organisations, but probably MultiVerse is the first and the best, act as, is a kind of a combination of a recruitment agency for the companies, but a training provider and a coaching organisation for the apprentices. It's creating a kind of it's fulfilling a unique role we haven't really had before, because I do think probably the selection process was quite tough. I mean, Luna talked about his. Tanya, I was wondering about coming back to you, if you could say a little bit about your recruitment process for what was obviously a competitive apprenticeship at BP.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually recruited through MultiVerse. So nice to see you guys again. But since they've changed their recruitment process, so it's different now. So you just apply through bp.com, you go through an application form, and then there's a few different steps you have to go through, which I think is quite similar to other graduate and other apprentice experiences. But it will be things like situational judgment questions, where it's like, imagine if you see this, what would you do? And they do a bit of personality tests, they do some video interviews, and then a full assessment day where you get to meet different people and do different activities.
Exactly, yes. I mean, I think one of the things is where, however you're doing it, whether it's through something like MultiVerse, whether it's direct, there are going to be a number of steps. There's been a question, and I think it's quite important. Somebody sort of said, you know, what if you want to be an apprentice in something which was perhaps traditional? The example given was a blacksmith. I've got the son of a friend of mine is actually doing a boat building apprenticeship. And I think what we're talking about, you know, Sue said at the beginning, there are 700 plus different sets of industry standards, and they range from the very traditional roles that we would associate with apprenticeships, things which were often in the craft sphere and so on. And of course, they also vary very much according to the size of the employer. And I think that's something which we need to consider. The number of big organisations taking on apprenticeships is really a result of the apprenticeship levy, this effective tax that's placed on companies with a turnover of a certain amount. And in a sense, a company has to pay that whether or not they actually offer apprenticeships. So the vast majority of big companies who have to pay that large amount of money are creating large numbers of apprenticeships. But the small apprenticeships still exist. often those are the ones which are the word of mouth ones. Somebody's dad's a plumber and thinks he might want to take on, or he might think about, rather than just taking on a youngster, he might decide to do it via an apprenticeship. So those ones are the ones where you probably have to keep your ear to the ground even more. But we've had, we've had students who've left Esher who've gone and, worked with, have done apprenticeships as electricians, as plumbers, in some of those more traditional apprenticeship areas. But work changes, work's changing really rapidly. Who would have thought that being a digital marketer would even be a thing 10 years ago, whereas now, of course, particularly as a result of COVID and the fact that so much of our lives and our shopping and so on has moved online, those brands, those companies are wanting to get our attention. So they need people to market them digitally. And therefore, thinking perhaps about the size of the employer is something to consider. If you are going into a big organisation, there are likely to be lots of apprentices, or at least more. If you're going to be doing an apprenticeship with, the chap up the road who's got his own heating and plumbing business, it's probably going to be you and him. And the element of the sort of social life is something you need to think about. But not everybody wants to be in a big group. Students, there will be some students who'll be very happy to do something where actually they're just working with one or two other people in a much smaller type of company. So I think it's where you as a student need to think about yourself and think about what you're good at, what your aptitudes are, and so on. And I was just going to really kind of sort of share, before we come back to a couple final questions, which I'm going to ask you, the sort of support that we provide for you at Esher. So if I have a share of this screen, those students at Esher might think that all we spend our time doing is getting you ready to go off to university, and one of the problems is that slide I showed you at the beginning. We are still an institution where the majority of students go off to university. But we do provide support and help for students who are going off to do apprenticeships. But because apprenticeship application processes are so varied and there are so many different apprenticeships, it's quite difficult to do it in the same way as we do it for university, where basically everybody does the same thing. Everybody fills out the same form, everybody goes through the same process, everybody has the same deadlines. So it's kind of, UCAS and university application is kind of easy in comparison in some ways to applying for an apprenticeship. But we provide Unifrog, and one of the reasons for providing Unifrog is that it is a one-stop shop for all sorts of destinations, and there is an apprenticeship search tool in just the same way as there's a university search tool. And actually, when Sue was talking earlier about all these different places that apprenticeships are advertised, what Unifrog tries to do is catch almost all of them. So you will see that there are MultiVerse apprenticeships that you will be able to pull up on Unifrog. There are the ones that are on the government website. There are ones that come via sort of not going to uni or rate my apprenticeships and so on. They're all going to be there. We also offer students at the end of 6-1, those who very definitely know they want to do an apprenticeship. We get a company in called Cragrats who actually basically set up and run a complete mock assessment centre exercise. So they will put you through the same sort of steps that Tanya and Luna and Joseph had to go through. One-to-one interviews, often group activities, presentations and so on. Last year we did do this online and it was quite challenging for everybody, but we're all getting better at using online platforms now. We hope that for the current 6-1s, our mock assessment centre exercise will be face-to-face, but we're obviously, in an uncertain world. At the end of the first year at Esher College, students can choose to do one of our progression pathways. and many students will choose to do something like an EPQ, an extended project qualification, but we have a number of others, including the career development pathway, which this year I've taken, I've led, and we've had lots of input from different people in different types of industry, and students who have been very keen to get apprenticeships effectively get 2 periods a week in your college timetable to kind of get an apprenticeship, in effect, to prepare your CV, to do things which are going to add to your profile. We've been creating LinkedIn profiles and so on, and if you're really keen on getting an apprenticeship and you're not sure you're going to have the time or the support, choosing to do the career development pathway as your progression pathway in 6.2 basically is a kind of a timetabled way of us providing you with support. And we've had great success this year with quite a lot of students getting their apprenticeships independently. However, quite a lot of the students who've done the career development pathway are also applying to university, and they're just doing it because they feel they want to develop their potential for a career in parallel with going off to university. And the other thing, of course, is that we're always here at Esher to provide you with one-to-one help. And I think this is where you've really got to overcome your worries about trying to either email us on progression@esher.ac.uk, that's our generic email address, and asking for help, asking for some one-to-one advice. We have Sally in the department who is in 4 days a week, and she's qualified at level 4 and is becoming qualified at level 6 as a careers advisor. On Fridays we have Alex, who's our Umbridge Consortium careers advisor, and Kat is our employer engagement and alumni coordinator, and she's really got her feelers out because she's starting to make really good contacts with local employers, and we're very much keeping on top of all the adverts that are coming through. So if you're a 6.2 who's thinking, you know, your parents nagging you to get that apprenticeship you've been talking about, you know, making yourself known to Kat and coming to see us in R105 if you're in college, don't forget to wear your mask. We can really kind of help you and provide you with some one-to-one help. And it might be, you know, us basically saying, well, we think it would be really good if you were to perhaps apply to MultiVerse and see whether you can get onto their sort of program and see if you can use their skills to help you get that that apprenticeship. If you are wanting to be a you know, an electrician or a beauty therapist or a blacksmith or work in childcare, you know, we've got our fingers on the pulse, and Sue sends us every week summaries of all the apprenticeships in all of the different parts of Surrey, and we can access similar things for the different boroughs in London as well. Sue's talked about most of these websites already, but the one which you might be quite surprised to see is that we do have UCAS sitting there in the middle of that slide. And UCAS is actually kind of getting into the apprenticeship game as well. They are actually acting as another sort of repository for employers to advertise apprenticeships, and they've actually got some really good stuff on their website too. 2 other organisations, as well as the government funded apprenticeship site and Amazing Apprenticeships, which Sue talked about, are Not Going to Uni. It's basically sort of comes from the Royal Air Force originally, but it's got lots of apprenticeships on there. And Rate My Apprenticeship as well is quite a good website, because for the big organisations, the apprentices are asked how good their apprenticeship has been and how good their apprenticeship provider was. And what Rate My Apprenticeship does is collate all that feedback and kind of create a little bit of a kind of league table of apprenticeship providers. So we've got a couple of questions that I think I would like to kind of now pose to some of our young people, actually. One was really kind of to Tanya. You've experienced both in-person and the virtual COVID side of the university aspect, and how has it changed it for you? How's the transition from the face-to-face to the university, from face-to-face to the online side been for you, say, Tanya?
Yeah, so I guess in ways it's changed a lot, and in some ways it hasn't. So I really do miss going to campus. There's an experience there you can't quite recreate. I used to love just having lunch and sitting on the green and just seeing people, and that's really when I feel like I'm a university student. But during COVID, they did adapt really well, and we basically do a similar thing, but just on Teams now and on webinars. And they break it up a bit more, so we have breaks and we're not online all the time, which might be a bit too much, but they've kind of kept it very much the same, so we didn't have too much change to get used to. So it's been pretty good, but I am looking forward to getting back in person.
Joseph, what have you had all of your input so far online because it's been during COVID, or have you had any face-to-face yet?
So at the start of my apprenticeship, I was working full-time, so 5 days a week, but I was going into the office about 3 times a week and working from home 2 days a week. As the lockdown got a bit tougher, I had to start working mainly from home the whole week. But now we have an office limit of 12 people. It used to be 10, but now we're trying to raise the capacity a little bit and go into the office some days a week. I do speak to my manager every morning to have one-to-ones to make sure I know what tasks I'm doing through the day and to see where I am on those tasks that I previously had that day. But yeah, it's looking like we're going back into the office a bit soon.
And how about you're off the job learning? How's that been provided for you? Has that been mostly online?
Yeah, that's been online as well. I speak to my coach almost minimum 3 times a month or 4 times a month on the modules and one-to-ones I have with him on how can I develop my digital marketing skills and what I've learned that past month. We also have a one-to-one with my coach that involves my manager as well to see how I'm doing on the job. So yeah, my coach really tries to push the areas that I'm trying to develop in my digital marketing skills each month and throughout the apprenticeship.
Excellent. I was going to ask Luna if you might sort of perhaps answer a couple of questions kind of combined. Somebody said, did you regret not going to university? And another question was, did any of you apply to university as well as a backup? Luna, could you perhaps answer that? You're muted.
There you go. You guys can hear me now.
Yep.
That has been the story of my life for the past year. So, so to answer the first question, quite frankly, I don't regret not going to university. I think, firstly, from the apprenticeship point of view, and I guess the roadmap that Exponential E's put me onto, from a career point of view, it definitely set me up for the rest of, I guess, my life in terms of development, and in terms of, I guess, the social aspect of university. You know, I guess from Expo Again's point of view, there's a number of teams across the organisation that I work with. So making new friends is really simple. Obviously, you're learning. I mentioned, obviously, you've got mentors that you work with. So you grow very good friendships with people. And I guess, did you apply for university? To be honest, I did. When I was back in East College, I believe it was Nottingham Trent Uni that I applied for. I did go there for a interview for 3D design, but it's something that I didn't really follow up on, just because of course the job that I had at Kew Gardens, and it wasn't an area that I wanted to go into. But yeah, in terms of, I guess, university, it's still a question that I do ask. I'm surrounded by a lot of people that did go to university, but I think it really depends on what route you take.
I think Sue's put into the chat as well that, you know, it's not a bad idea to do both if you're in the position of being able to do both. Keeping options open for as long as possible is great, and you know, I certainly we're very happy if those of you in 6.2 who've, you know, got offers from universities still think, I'm not sure about whether I really want to go to uni. I still might put an application in for an apprenticeship. You know, that's great, and that if you're a 6-1 and you're not sure, well, do both, because you don't, in a sense, have to decide. And I know quite often, MultiVerse works with students who start at university and actually realise it's not for them, and then they decide that perhaps they really should be doing something different. And I think last year, Akeem, the 2 apprentices that you brought with us to this session had both started at university and decided it wasn't for them, and then gone through you to get apprenticeships. So but you're in a position where you can, in effect, as you leave Esher, think about a whole range of things, and why not? Why not put multiple applications in? Although I think if you do put apprenticeship applications in, you have to be absolutely able to convince them you really do want the apprenticeship. So there's a little bit of how do we put it? We have to make sure that we are completely convinced, and we don't possibly tell them that we've also got an application into university, and we might be just hedging our bets at the time. Going for other questions, or actually comment. I don't know how many, whether the comments are visible on the YouTube channel, but Tanya both did the mock assessment centre exercise and the career development pathway when she was at Esher, and found them both very helpful. So that's something that those of you certainly in 6-1 can consider. And there's the final question, perhaps, I think, is how flexible are the times you are at the apprenticeship when you have to go in and leave for those? So how flexible are the times you are at the apprenticeship when you go in and leave for those who have jobs or carer roles? Right, so I mean, it is your job, so you're not going to be doing the apprenticeship as well as another job. I think that's one thing to be clear. You might be doing uni and have a part-time job, but you're not going to be doing an apprenticeship and another job. This is your job. So you will be going in at whatever time your employer wants you to go in, and they might have a flexible working policy, or they might have quite a rigid working policy, I would think. Well, Joseph, what's your employer working time policy?
Monday to Friday, 9 till 6.
Monday to Friday, 9 till 6. What's yours, Luna?
Fairly similar to Joseph, actually, 9 to 5:30, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, and Tanya?
Monday till Friday, but kind of any time within reason. So like 8 till 4, 9 till 5, 10 till 6, as long as you do the hours.
Yeah, and obviously if you are a carer or have got caring responsibilities, then that would be something you should be talking about with your apprenticeship provider, because if you're good and they want you, but you need to be flexible because you perhaps have got to be able to, I don't know, help with younger siblings perhaps, or something along those lines. It's important that your apprenticeship provider knows that. But most employers are flexible if there are good reasons for it, I think. So I think you would probably need to discuss that with the employer at the time. There was one final specific question, which was perhaps if I could direct this at Sue, as you're the expert across the board, which is, what advice would you give to someone looking for an apprenticeship in fitness?
Definitely look on all of the fitness large company websites and see what they're doing. Make sure you've got work experience, or that your application is really showing why you're interested in fitness, perhaps being part of sports teams or something like that. And then look on the Find an Apprenticeship website. I would actually say fitness and that area, along with retail and hospitality, have been really hit by COVID. And I haven't seen a lot of vacancies recently. We usually see quite a lot of vacancies in sport and exercise, but I haven't seen a lot recently. But then they've all been closed, so it's no surprise, is it?
Brilliant. Now, there's one final thing I'm actually going to say for those of you who are currently in 6-1, which is that being able to evidence, even for your application for an apprenticeship, is really important. Being able to evidence that you already have got beginning skills in communication and problem solving and team building and so on is really important. And we have an expectation for those of you in the first year that you will do some form of work experience this year. We've set aside 3 days for you to do it in the 3 days immediately after the May half term. It's possible for you to arrange your own work experience independently. That's quite tough, particularly at the moment. It might well be something that was online, but if you can't organise your own work experience, we are running and we've set up the internship for you, and so you can apply for this 3-day programme that we're going to be running with 8 billion ideas. And if you haven't already got an idea of what you're going to be doing, what you'll create, what you'll experience in 8 billion ideas will give you fantastic evidence for team building and problem solving, working together. And that will be the sort of thing that would really look good on your application for any apprenticeship of any kind. So if you're a 6-1 student and you want to do that, we may be able to open it up to 6-2 students. Obviously, 6-2 students will have technically left college by those dates, 7th to the 9th of May. But if there are any of those of you in 6-2 who feel that possibly your skill set is a little bit lacking, or you're perhaps a bit lacking in evidence to put into your application, if you want to email me and say, could you be considered for the internship, we'll effectively have a kind of reserve list of 6-2s, and if there is capacity, we will enable some 6-2s to go onto that programme too, and to sort of build up your CV, build up your experience and evidence, so that your applications to MultiVerse or directly to employers will be that much better. I'd really like to thank all our contributors tonight. I think hopefully those of you at home are excited about the potentials out there, the potential opportunities rather out there. We are in quite a scary time. Obviously, COVID has made us all reassess work, really, reassess our lives in lots of ways. But I think as an Esher College student who is perhaps thinking of an apprenticeship, seeing Tanya, seeing Luna out there, you know, you can see that people have gone before you and are very successful, and it would be amazing to have some of you back in a year or two's time in the slots that kind of have been occupied by Tanya and Luna. And I'd very much like to thank Joseph as well, and Sue, the font of all knowledge, Apprenticeships in Surrey. Thank you for your presentation beforehand, and the fact that we got you twice over didn't really matter. The important things were there. I will put some of the key things from today on the college website, and this session will be recorded and at some point uploaded as well if anyone wants to use it again. So I think I'd like to thank our IT director, who's been kind of running today, but I hope you found today useful and interesting, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks.